if you want a relationship, maybe pick the person who has the best relational skills to be in a relationship with, not the best ass. So what most nice guys are, they're trying to become what we think other people want us to be liked and loved and get our needs met, and hiding anything about ourselves that might get a negative reaction.
For me, that people pleaser journey has really been a personal reparenting of that part of myself. I can still be a nice guy, I can still be polite and stuff, but I do need to be completely honest, which requires loving myself, knowing my own desires and communicating them. Without that, it's inauthentic and transactional.
Basically, they say, well, if I can't date a 10, I'm not going to date at all. And I go, that's like saying if I can't drive a Bentley, I'm not going to drive at all. Start with a fucking Honda Civic. Start with the basics and work up. Develop your skill set. Develop what you have to offer to a relationship. By me making me a priority, I'm more loving, I have more to give, and I'm more receptive of the love that people want to give me.
Hey, it's Gareth. It's the Father, Sons, Brothers podcast, and thank you for hanging out and spending some time with us today. My conversation that I'm going to be sharing with you on today's episode is one that's very near and dear to my own heart. I'm speaking with author Dr. Robert Glover, who wrote a book called No More Mr. Nice Guy, where he talks about the challenges as well as the downfalls of the people pleaser or the nice guy strategy. The reason I'm excited about this is that this has been a theme for me most of my life. And while it may not sound like a bad thing to be a nice guy, the shadow part or the dark side of being a nice guy or a people pleaser is that often in my life, I was showing up putting the needs of others above myself first, one. I would potentially not share or withhold certain information in the fear that it might perhaps break down some of the connection or perhaps cause conflict in my relationships. What I didn't realize is that underneath this sort of mask of being a nice guy, I wasn't actually being an authentic and honest person. What that means is where I was perhaps connecting with a woman and I would be concerned that my honest truth would either break the connection or perhaps upset that person, I would not be completely honest with them. And I think we can see the challenge in not being completely honest with the people that we love the most, while hoping that somehow the relationship will still flourish, even with a breakdown of trust that comes from not being completely honest. This strategy, this people-pleasing strategy, this nice guy strategy, as I've recognized it and integrated it in my own life, it has probably been one of the most powerful strategies that I've integrated in my life and has been a way for me to be able to reclaim my power and level up the trust that I'm building in the relationships that I care about the most. You see, because once I knew exactly what it was that I wanted and put my own needs first, it's from this place that I can communicate with my partners, the people that I work with, the people that I love the most. I can communicate my desires, what it is that I want. I get to hold my boundaries where I say, these are things that I'm not prepared to do or things that I'm not prepared to accept in my relationships. And with this place, I'm no longer using the strategy of always trying to make sure that the other person is okay or people pleasing the other person as a way to be able to move through life. If you have any tendencies to show up in service of other people above yourself, if you ever hold your tongue and don't own what it is that you want or hold boundaries because you're worried that it might create conflict or cause a breakdown in connection in your relationships, this episode is really going to support you to be able to help recognize these patterns and integrate them in your life in a way that's going to give you so much more power and access to much deeper and potent relationships. In addition to that, we also speak about what it means to be a nice guy and recognize whether it is you're a nice guy or not. We speak about how to take responsibility for meeting your own needs. We talk about conscious dating and the importance of being completely honest with your partners as a way to be able to build trust and have powerful connections with the partners in your life. We talk about the cost of porn and social media when it comes to sex and intimacy in your relationships. And we talk about why you can't love somebody else more than you love yourself. This is a super powerful conversation, and if you have any tendencies towards being a people pleaser or a nice guy, you are going to gain so much from this episode, and I'm really excited to be sharing it with you. Before we jump into the episode, I also want to share a resource that I've recently created based on this theme of being a people pleaser. And the resource is called Unapologetically You. 15 questions to ask in order to show up fully and live your fuck yes life. A few years ago, when I recognized this people pleaser theme in my life, I recognized there was a place as well where I was continually apologizing for things as a way to make other people around me feel okay. I would apologize for things that sometimes I didn't even need to apologize for. And so as I recognized this strategy in my life and I wanted to integrate this, I chose a word of the year, which was unapologetic. This was the part of me that was like recognizing that I don't have to apologize for being a man. I don't have to apologize for walking this earth or taking up space or having a voice. And being unapologetic has really given me a place of being able to show up in my fullness and in my power for the work that I'm doing in the world, for the relationship that I have with my partner, and for how I'm being in service. These 15 questions are super powerful ways for you to be able to check where you are putting others in service before yourself, and to be able to reclaim your power and live your fuck yes life. It's a free PDF that you can grab using the link below this episode. It'll probably take you about 20 minutes, half an hour to go through, and will become a resource that you can continually use to recognize places where you're leaking power in your life through being a people pleaser, continually saying sorry for things that you don't need to, or being a nice guy when you really need to be an honest and empowered man. I hope you enjoy this episode with Dr. Robert Glover. So without further ado, let's jump into this episode. Hello and welcome to the Fathers, Sons, Brothers podcast. I'm joined today by Dr. Robert Glover. Welcome to the show.
Garrett, thanks for the invitation.
You're our neighbor in Mexico, me recording in Guatemala. How's life in Mexico? I'm having such a deep love affair with Latin America. And when I heard that you were based in Mexico, I was very keen I had to listen to the end of the show to find out where. And I'd love to hear how that's
we just had to talk, right? People say, Robert, why do you live in Mexico? Why do you live in Puerto Vallarta? And I said, sunshine. I grew up in Seattle, Washington, which is gray, cloudy, almost year round. And when I first came down here and discovered, being on the ocean and blue sky and sun year round and warm, friendly people and good food and margaritas and culture, I thought I'm coming back and I'm going to work on my Spanish. So that was 1999, so 25 years ago, and just kept coming back. And I thought, I got to live here at least part of the year. And so started doing 6 months here, 6 months in Seattle, and then met the woman who has been my wife now for 7.5 years, and she's Mexican. And so about 10 years ago, met her and just started staying longer. So I own a home here now and, got a Mexican wife. And halfway decent at Spanish because my wife and stepkids don't speak English. And
beautiful.
My wife always says we go in a restaurant and the waiter say, does he want a menu in English? No, we're in Mexico. He can speak Spanish. So I go, give them, my wife and kids, give them the menus in English. They can practice their English. So I like a lot of things about being in Latin America. I actually learned one thing. Here's a geography fun fact. Did you know that Central America actually is not real? It does not exist. That all of the countries from, Canada down to Ecuador, down to the border, are actually all technically North America.
Right.
Even though Costa Rica on their license plate says Central America. It technically, even Cuba is still North America. So when Mexicans refer to us gringos, as Canadians and Americans, as Norte Americanos, I go, yeah, you too, even Mexico.
It's just a line between Texas and Mexico that, that was the same landmass. Yeah,
and that line moved at different times in history. So, so there's just I didn't know that till I was helping my stepson with his geography a few years ago. We're trying to identify what are the countries in Central America, and come to find out, Central America doesn't exist. It's all North America.
When I come to Puerto Vallarta, I'm going to definitely have a couple of margaritas and some tacos with you.
Yeah, I definitely make very good margaritas.
I also heard your wife
I mean,
makes
I pretty
enchiladas.
much,
That was what got me actually. When I heard in
yeah.
the podcast your wife makes enchiladas, I was like, that's the
Oh
real
yeah,
deal,
yeah.
probably.
Her enchiladas are, yeah. It's that was another nice thing about moving to Mexico and marrying my Mexican wife. When we moved in together, I bought a house, and just before we got married, moved in and her kids, and it was a big house. And she told me later, I didn't know you were going to move me in with you. And I go, this house has multiple bedrooms, a swimming pool, 5 bathrooms. And what, you think I'm going to leave you, living over basically in a ghetto with your kids? Yeah, you
Uh-huh.
can come over and use the pool every now and then. But anyway, we move in, and like, as soon as we get settled, she says, would you like me to make such and such tonight? I don't remember what it was. And I go, I don't know what that is, but sure. And it was good. And the next night she said, would you want me to make such and such? I go, I don't know what that is either, but go ahead. It's good. Quickly found out, I did not know this. My wife's a really good cook,
Wow.
because before, I was just had her over to my place, and either, I made food and she helped, or I had takeout, or we went to a restaurant. I'd never, she'd never cooked for me
Wow.
in like 2.5 years of getting to know her. So that was a really pleasant surprise. Some people, when they move in or get married, the surprises they get, they go, oh, wait a minute. I guess it's good we found this out now.
Uh-huh.
That was a good surprise to find out she's an excellent cook, very good cook.
Beautiful. Wow. There's something about that forced retirement that I've noticed in my father's friends, not so much with my dad because he was more on an entrepreneurial path, but his friends that were in big corporate jobs, corner office, flying around the world, doing all these meetings. When their 65th birthday comes along and company policy says, thanks, bud, you're out of here now, they have a massive identity crisis of exactly
Yeah.
what to do from one day to the next. They're suddenly hanging around the house. They don't know quite how to be with their wives anymore all the time. And so there's an interesting transition there. You must have come across that in your work. You see that as a theme in men and retirement?
Definitely so. What I see it as a theme is I live in a retirement community. Um, Puerto
Hmm.
Vallarta it's a tourist town,
Yeah.
and it primarily in the past, it's kind of evolving, it's growing, but in the past it primarily attracted retirees. People, you can come down here 6 months out of the year. A lot of Canadians come down here. They come down, just hang out and eat cheap food and drink beer and watch Fox News and shit like that and play golf. And it's a big gay community. A lot of gay men come here year round.
Hmm.
It's now becoming more families coming for vacation, not just
Hmm.
coming for like months at a time. So
Hmm.
yeah, believe me, I've been surrounded with, the people that come down here. And, I remember the first time I came down here for 3 months to really give it a try. Can I live here? And I started living like a tourist. I was drinking margaritas every night, gaining weight, not getting to the gym, not getting much work done. And I thought, I can't keep doing that. I
Right.
gotta, I'm in a tourist town, but I can't pretend like I'm on vacation.
Hmm.
I gotta find some structure and discipline around that.
Hmm.
And, that's been an ongoing process. But yeah, I watch a lot of people my age, and people all the time ask me, are you retired? No, I work all the time. Just ask my wife. She'll tell you I work all the time. Um, and I, you know what? I can't imagine not getting up and doing what I do every day. I love my life. I get up 7 o'clock, meditate, do some journal writing, do some reading, check messages, take the dog for a walk with my wife, get
Hmm.
back. It's about 9:30. I'm pretty much working until, and
Yeah.
I love it. I'm connecting with good men around the world. I'm creating value. I'm inspired. I mean, again, you and I were chatting just for the interview, and we're just talking about these ideas that were just coming of what we could do. And why would I want to quit having great ideas and the enthusiasm and the passion for, like, wouldn't it be great to do this? So yeah, I love that I'm alive and ticking. I'm grateful for the doctor that, that found my tumor, and
Hmm.
discovered why I couldn't pee. I bought him a nice watch after he took my tumor out. I don't know, Mexicans down here usually give you a bunch of eggs or a goat or some chickens or something,
Uh-huh.
but I wanted him to have a nice watch. I wanted to give it to him because I was alive and I
He gave
could.
you time.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. He gave me time. I had never thought it quite like that. Thank you. Yeah, he gave me more time.
So you gave some back to him. Cool.
Yeah.
I've heard you speak before about relationships as a vehicle for transformation, and I'd love to
Yeah.
get your sense of how you look at that, and yeah, perhaps some of the pitfalls that men see in their relationships.
All right. Well, there's a couple questions in that. My training and background is marriage and family therapy. I got a doctorate in marriage and family therapy when I was 29 years old. So I've been
Hmm.
working with relationships for a long time. My private practice back in the States was primarily working with couples and families until I started doing my own work around my own nice guy issues and started seeing a lot of the guys coming to me for therapy with their wives or girlfriends were saying the same thing I was. I started seeing this nice guy thing, started doing men's groups, and that's where I ended up writing No More Mr. Nice Guy. So my background's always been relationships. And then when I got divorced in my late 40s from my second wife and entered the dating world. And I'd not dated since college and I wasn't good at it then. I used what I call nice guy seduction. Pick out a woman that wasn't too good looking, wasn't too bad looking, wasn't too scary, kind of try to impress her by knowing answers in class, ask her things about herself, try to do things for her, all that nice guy seduction kind of stuff. And so I got out in the dating world, and I thought, okay, I guess if I want anything different in my life from my past relationships, I'd learn how to date differently.
Okay.
So, back then there wasn't tons of material. I think Neil Strauss had already written the game by that time, and there were some
Yeah.
podcasts out there on dating, and so I just started listening and reading, and guys gave me content, and David D'Angelo had content out there, and so I just started going out and just being a social animal and just interacting with people and being bold and I started having success meeting women and going on dates and my guys started saying, "Teach us, what are you doing?" I go, well, I'm not a dating coach. I'm a marriage therapist, but marriage therapist who's divorced. But so I started teaching dating programs and develop a course and workshops and have written a couple dating books now on conscious dating.
What had shifted for you there? What did you pick up that shifted in you that you suddenly started to get dates? What was the thing there?
Well, there's maybe two different things in there because one is it's not hard to get dates. I mean, it's not. Um, and I just kind of got out of my own way a lot of it and just started
Okay.
being bold and just saying, "Give me your phone number." You
Uh-huh.
know, often when I was like doing a dating workshop, if I was talking to guys and like if a couple walked by, if we're in public, there's a man and woman walking by, and I'll go, "You know why that woman's with that guy? Why?" Because he did something. He talked to her. He got her phone number. He asked her out. That's
Right.
why. So
Yes.
you got to take action.
Yeah.
And you got to challenge your self-limiting beliefs. But what I really teach is what I call conscious dating, just like I teach conscious relationships. Whereas I think approaching anything consciously, but especially something as challenging as dating, mating, courting, long-term relationships, none of those are in human DNA. And that kind of surprising to most people because we all think, well, haven't people been just like, dating and getting married forever? No, we really haven't. So it's not in our evolutionary wiring.
Right.
So it's very challenging to date. It's very challenging to court. It's very challenging to be in a long term relationship with a member of the opposite sex. And
Hmm.
especially the way we try to do it nowadays. I think maybe our grandparents even had it easier than we do. We've made everything difficult. So if if we can approach something difficult, challenging, unnatural, even like
Hmm.
dating, it's only existed maybe since World War II, and it still doesn't exist in the East. I still work with adult men whose weddings were arranged for them by
Yep.
family,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So the whole idea of dating has not been around very long. Um, our parents and grandparents, they married their best friend's, brother or sister, somebody they went to church with, somebody they went to school with.
Yes.
They didn't go out in public and go, how and even when I started dating, doing online dating back, early 2000s, even back then, online dating still kind of had a stigma.
It's kind of
Oh,
weird. Yeah, for
you have to
sure.
go on the internet to to get dates.
Right.
I mean, that's changed tremendously. Now everybody's just on their app swiping right, and unfortunately, fewer and fewer people are actually getting into relationship statistically,
Yep.
and fewer people are actually getting laid statistically with all of the technology. That just shows you how unnatural dating, mating, and long-term relationships are.
Mm-hmm.
But if something is not natural or easy and we can approach it consciously, it's going to be a powerful stimulus for growth. Dr. David Snarch, late David Snarch, he passed away a couple of years ago, wrote a book called Passionate Marriage. And in there, he uses a term, and I kind of paraphrase him, but I talk about treating relationships as a powerful personal growth machine.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's you approach dating as a powerful personal growth machine, um, marriage, long term relationship of any kind, whether they be open, monogamous, whatever. They're all going to be powerful personal growth machines if we do them consciously. If we
Right.
don't do them consciously, they're going to eat us alive and spit us out, which is what they mostly do to most people,
Yes.
because most people have really, really unrealistic expectations of anything to do with the opposite sex. Um, and so, because of our unrealistic expectations, and probably just lack of training and skills and role models, most of us struggle mightily with relationship. I'll give you a quick example. I was on a call from my membership program just before I got on with you today.
Yeah.
In fact, I got on with you 15 minutes after it ended. And we had a Q&A session today. It was just an hour of Q&A. And a guy came on and he said, I don't know, I was probably late 20s. And he said, my longest relationship is 6 months. Okay, so implied in that question was, what's wrong with me? And I said, I said, let me talk about something. This is the answer I'm going to give you first is not really he wasn't really asking what was wrong. He was just wanting some advice for doing some things different. I said,
Yeah.
but let me address something you didn't really even ask. And I said, because I don't get to address it often. But culturally, we live in a culture, and I'm not even sure exactly where it comes from. Maybe it's the religious influence of culture. But we live in a culture where people judge and measure themselves by their relationship success. Okay. And
Yeah.
I see it from all levels. You know, I see a lot of men out there, younger men especially, who have all the tools to meet women, to date, to get laid. And I meet guys that have never had a girlfriend. I meet guys that have never had sex. Those men judge themselves harshly for never having a girlfriend, for never having
Uh-huh.
had sex. I meet men who've had three relatively short term, maybe we'll call them girlfriends. They judge themselves harshly. I see like this guy. My longest relationship is 6 months. I think he was judging himself for that.
Right.
I see other people that go, I've had multiple relationships, but they don't ever last. They judge themselves for that. You know, um, Back when I said when I was teaching guys to date and I was single, I used to joke I'm a marriage therapist that's been divorced twice, and a dating guru that doesn't have a girlfriend. And I say, and guys still line up to pay me money, but I can judge myself for that. I've
Right.
been married 3 times, and I still feel a little bit of a twinge when I go, I got a PhD in marriage and family therapy and 40 years of experience working with relationships. And I'm on my third marriage, and we've had our struggles. I think that we've seemed to have gotten through the bulk of them. But here's the deal: relationships are not natural and are not easy, but yet here we are walking around judging ourselves on this side of it, that side of it. I was on a podcast a month ago with two men who both see themselves as kind of relationship coaches talking with me. So there's three guys having a conversation. One guy said, I feel shame in talking with guys about relationship because I think he said I'm not currently married.
Okay.
I'm not even sure he had a girlfriend. I don't remember for sure, but not right
Okay.
now. He has in the past. The other guy said, I kind of have shame teaching guys about relationship because I've only had one girlfriend in my entire life. I got lucky and met a great woman in like high school, and we've been together like 9 years or something like that. So he felt shame about
Right.
what did he have to offer because he'd never been through the struggles. And I go, okay, I've been married 3 times. I'm a marriage and family therapist. And people go, you think if you're a marriage and family therapist, you'd figure out how not have to be married 3 times. So again,
Yeah.
we have all of this judgment, whether it's this, or this around what's wrong with us based on measuring ourselves. That's like saying Well, I've never played in the NBA. I love baseball. Well, I've never been a professional baseball player. I can't hit a major league curveball. I can't hit a ball out of the park. What's wrong with me? There's not anything wrong with me. I just don't have that skill set. But it'd be just as silly to judge myself for never having been a professional athlete for not being perfect at doing relationships, whatever
Yep.
perfect looks like. And what does it look like? Does it mean you've had X number, but not Y number of
It's
relationships?
nuts. There's
Does
no,
it,
yeah.
is it they've each lasted X, this amount of time, but not that amount of time, or not that amount of time? So anyway, I don't even remember if this answered any of the questions you asked me, but
Mm,
other than relationships are challenging, they're difficult, and they're beautiful, and they're amazing, and they can teach us, and they can grow us, and we can grow other people, and it's just they're amazing. And I've bumbled my way through every relationship I've ever had. I'm learning, and I still bumble.
we're all cosmic toddlers bumbling around at different stages of our lives, just trying to make it work. I feel that same thing. Yeah, I think whether I'd love to go back to that place of the repeating relationship pattern, because that was definitely me, and I think it leads into two things that I want to speak to you about. One of them is that when we move into a relationship, if we're not completely comfortable with being ourselves, we start to be who we think the other person wants us to be. And there's a space of inauthenticity in that engagement that when the masks eventually start to crumble, normally around month 6, the other person doesn't do how the things that you want them to do to make you feel wanted. Yeah, at the basis of that is radical honesty and complete truth about my desires, about my
Oh
boundaries.
my goodness, what are you talking about? you know, Here's the thing. I think we all know this to be a fact, but whether we admit it to ourselves, everybody, well, not everybody, but let's just say the majority of people, when they first meet another person whom they like, or think they will like,
Right,
and want them to be liked back, everybody puts their best foot forward. Right now, there's a few people out there that just they put their normal obnoxious self forward, and then wonder why they can't get in a relationship. But most people do their best to cover up the obnoxious parts of themselves,
right.
and that means both people are doing that. And it doesn't matter if
Yes.
there's a man and a woman, two men, two women, whatever. Everybody is being, to some degree, inauthentic
Uh-huh.
about who they are. Now, the to what degree inauthentic people are varies, but let's just assume everybody is being inauthentic, because if I like you, I want to make a good impression so you'll like me back.
Right.
And like I said, there's some people out there, because maybe if a woman, for example, is attractive enough, she really doesn't have to give a fuck if she, is a decent person, because men will flock to her. And
Right.
so she doesn't really have to put an inauthentic self forward. She can be her, you know, obnoxious self, and guys
Hmm.
will still go, "Oh, okay, but you'll date me, right? You'll go out with me, right?" So that's a whole different issue. But yes, most people are fairly inauthentic when they meet.
And the guys that are attracted to that woman, this is me, tend to have a low self-esteem about themselves, and it's some sort of signal to my brothers that I can date good-looking women, and that somehow means something about me, even if there isn't an authentic match with who this being is. She's good-looking, and so that somehow means something about me, and I've definitely felt that in my
Yeah,
experience.
I've been there. My second wife was very attractive. I mean, everybody that met her and I, they all said the same thing. That's your wife? It's kind of like, how'd you get her?
Hmm.
I assume they assumed I had a really big penis or a lot of money. But she was very attractive, and
Right.
and they all said she's gorgeous. That's the word everybody used. She's
Right.
gorgeous.
Yes.
Yeah, and every man we met hit on her, and every woman we met hit on her. Um, but yeah, was it a great ego boost? Yeah. Was she a good long-term relationship partner? No, and that was obvious almost from the time we met. But
Right.
I ignored it. I ignored it for 14 years of marriage. Well, and I didn't ignore it for 14 years of marriage. I tried to manage it for 14 years of marriage.
Hmm.
But yeah, she was gorgeous. So who am I to leave that? And will I ever forget that again? And whatever reason, whether we call it low self-esteem, or we want our friends to be impressed by us, or you know even I work with guys, who can't talk to women, who just have no social skills,
Yeah.
and they've been watching porn for so long, and they're on social media, liking a lot of Instagram models, and basically they say, well, if I can't date a 10, I'm not going to date at all. And I go, that's like saying if I can't drive a Bentley, I'm not going to drive at all. Start with a fucking Honda Civic.
Get out there.
Start with the basics and work up. Develop your skill set. Develop, what you have to offer to a relationship. But again, there's so many things that, most so many men nowadays are just underskilled socially in general, that to actually interact with a woman who they're attracted to just scares them so much they don't at all, and they just okay, porn's easy, I'll just go back and look at some more porn. Social media is easy, I'll just go look at some more social media.
Hmm.
I tell guys, you're my grandparents, our granddads, they maybe saw 3 attractive women in their lifetime, and none of them were probably naked. But we can
Right.
see multiples of really attractive women naked, 24/7.
Right.
And so we get some kind of distorted views of what good relationship material is. And I tell guys, listen, don't confuse a dopamine hit to the brain. Like you see that attractive woman and your brain goes, that feels good. I feel all warm inside. I feel aroused. I start having fantasy life of what it would be like to have that person, because the dopamine draws our attention to it. But I said, don't confuse a dopamine hit to the brain to the possibility that she's either good in bed or a good partner. None of those have anything to do with each other. I
Right.
tell guys, it's like, when I had a tumor in my small intestine, what if I based my decision making on who's going to take out that tumor based on their attractiveness and my ego?
Yeah,
That's
it's
a
nuts.
that's a that'd be dumb. I
Yeah,
don't
that'd
I,
be
I don't
crazy.
even I don't even use that as a model for who do I take my car to get it fixed. I take my car to the person I think can do the best job to fix it.
Yeah.
Now, I'm thinking if you want a relationship, maybe pick the person who has the best relational skills to be in a relationship with, not the best ass. That's not a good predictor of relationship ability or even how good they are in bed.
Yep.
But again, we can thank porn for most of that.
Mm. There's something on the porn that also creates an unrealistic expectation of what intimacy is about. Firstly, how quickly women warm up, how often they come, what it's like, how they, when they have an orgasm. If you only have that as a reference point, it's actually wrong to the way a real woman works. And I think that also creates a distorted view of exactly what sexual intimacy is like if you only watch porn.
Yeah, I've joked before that unfortunately, two of the worst things to happen to men is to learn how to put on antiperspirant by watching Axe body spray commercials, where the guy is spraying all this highly perfumed stuff all over him.
Right.
So learning how to put on antiperspirant by watching Axe, commercials,
Yes.
and learning how to do sex by watching porn.
Yeah.
Same thing. It's just as grotesquely um,
It's distorted.
bad modeling.
Yeah.
Just it's a distortion. Yeah, so don't spray a bunch of perfume on you and think that's going to make you irresistibly attractive to women, and don't think perfecting the cum shot to her face is going to that's intimate sex.
Hmm. Yeah. I've heard you speak before about our capacity to be able to receive love in relationship as a link to our own ability to love ourselves. And I've heard you use an analogy around this. And I think it would be a great place for us to share with anybody listening to this that might be sitting at home thinking, I'm ready to get loved up by the woman of my dreams and her
Yeah,
to love me like 100%. What could be a problem with that man that's looking to call that in that he maybe doesn't see in himself?
yeah. I again, I just had a call earlier today with my membership group, and a guy asked a question. He said, my girlfriend is very loving, and she'll be sitting right next to me, and she'll say nice things to me, and she'll touch me, and she's affectionate, and she tells me she loves me. And he goes, my brain's just sitting there the whole time going, I don't believe her. I don't believe her. I don't believe it could be true. And I said, yeah, you're probably not the only person that has that difficulty accepting very clear demonstrations of love from your girlfriend. And I said,
Hmm.
it could be one of two things. And I'm going to actually give you the reverse order of what I talked with him. I said, one, it could be a matter of love languages. It could
Yeah.
be that you and your partner don't speak the same love language. languages. As both a therapist who's worked with lots of couples and somebody who's had several relationships, the easiest relationships, like I said, they're challenging no matter what, but the easiest tend to be where I think you have maybe a similar intellectual level, but a similar love language.
Yep.
Because if both of you feel loved through physical touch and affection, you're probably going to do okay
Yeah.
because you're both going to be giving and receiving. And if you
Yep. Yep.
both feel loved through time spent, you'll probably both be okay.
Yeah.
If you both feel loved through acts of service, well, you'll probably just have a competition to see who can outserve the other.
Right.
The problem is, I kind of joke about, for example, with my wife and I tend to express love through acts of service. I'm generous. I give to the people I care about and I love. And so, I give, to the people around me, including my wife. And, then she'll kind of, do this thing like, I don't love her, or I must be looking for somebody else, or I must have another girlfriend. And I'm going, why is it so hard for you to know how much I love you? I said, say, look around. I go, you live in a beautiful home. Your kids are going to a private school. You drive nice vehicles. You don't have to work outside the home. You can wear Lululemon. You can fly first class. You guys, look at all the stuff I do for you. And she'll go, I still think you're cheating on me. And I go, why can't you just accept my love? Well, that's not her love language.
Right.
Acts of service is not what makes her feel loved. Being deeply physically desired is her love language.
Okay.
Okay. And she has a different sex drive than I do. And at 68 years old, especially after a prostate surgery, my sex drive isn't that high. Now, luckily, we've used this as a powerful personal growth machine. She's actually come, I think, to feel more loved, even if I can't bring the amount of sexual desire to her and she's also 22 years younger than me. So when she was around younger men, she just assumed men are horny 24/7. That's just
Okay.
her idea of Mexico. She grew up in
Right.
Mexico too. So, men are horny 24/7. And,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not. So she
Right.
thinks I must not love her.
Okay.
And it's as far from the truth as it could be. So there's that one piece.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll ask guys a lot of times, I'll go, they're talking about their wife seems unhappy and doesn't feel loved. And I go, what's her love language? And when the guy kind of looks like, I got no fucking clue what you're even talking about,
Yep.
I'm going, that could be part of the problem.
We're
And
ill-equipped.
and so yeah, we don't, and again, this is an honest mistake, really, because I'm doing my best to love the people I love in the way that I show love.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's not the way they sense and receive love, they're going to feel unloved. And all of a
Right.
sudden, now we're going to start fighting about the fact that, you don't love me. And I'm going, how can you even say that? And so it doesn't matter, how you line those, 5 different love languages or whatever there are up.
Right.
If you can get both people naturally on the same page, great.
Mm-hmm.
If not, you have to train people to start giving to their partner differently and to also start being appreciative of the different ways their partner gives to them.
Uh-huh. Exactly.
And so, I mean, we can, luckily, we can be trained. I don't know that we'll ever just shift 100% what really activates us. Okay. Now to the other part of the question. My background, I was born in a fundamental religious family. I grew up in fundamental Christianity. I
Mm-hmm.
have 2 degrees in religion, and I was a minister for 8 years. And I often say that I kind of like being a minister. I like doing this. I like communicating with people and making lives better. And I
Right.
and I always thought, well, I'll probably, I don't know what church would ever hire me to be a minister. Number one, I'm not religious, so that might get in the way. But I say fuck a lot. I don't know, the church would have to be okay with me saying fuck, in the
Right.
pulpit. So I thought if I ever preach again, I'll have to start my own church. So maybe that's what I did with the men's membership program. We joke about it. We go, it's not a cult. It's not a cult. Because people want to think anytime men are getting together and being vulnerable and supporting each other, it must be a
Mm-hmm.
cult. It must be, this. It must be that. It's dangerous. It's
Yeah.
patriarchal. It's something. Anyway, that's a whole nother subject.
Yeah. Yeah.
But but the religious reference. Going back, again, this is not pushing religion because I'm not religious. Jesus got asked a question by the religious lawyers of his day, and it was a setup. It was a trick question, and they came to him and said, "What's the greatest law?" And he said, basically, that's simple. Love God with all your heart. And he goes, and the second law is just like it, which means the second law and the first law are the same if it's just like it. And he said, and most of us know this as the golden rule, or, but the second one is love your neighbor as yourself.
Right.
Now, it's interesting. I've not really heard all that many people actually dissect the the hermeneutics of this, of what does this actually mean?
Mm-hmm.
So really what I believe Jesus said, number one, is that there's no separate self. There's not God over there, you here, neighbor over there.
Mm-hmm.
That's the mistake that we humans all make, is that
Separation.
everything that's separate self.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we can go to war with each other. It's why we can colonize each other. It's why we can rape each other. It's why we can harm each other. Because, God's over there. I'm here. You're over there. We're not the same.
Right.
Jesus was basically saying, okay, there's no separate self. God, self, other, all the same. And that's a hard thing for people to grasp. And
Mm-hmm.
especially people for some reason, that's a hard thing for religious people to grasp, even though it seemed to have been the core message that Jesus taught.
There's still a
Was that,
separate someone judging me.
yeah,
I'm
there's not
not. I'm
God
not
up
God.
there,
Yeah.
heaven's not over there, kingdom of God's right here. And he said the kingdom of God is how you treat your neighbor. Not just do you love God and follow a bunch of rules, but it's how you treat your neighbor. And later on, there's another reference where people said, you know, um, Jesus was talking about caring for people, feeding the poor, and going the second mile, doing things to help other people.
Yeah.
And he says, and when you do that to others, you've done it to me. And the people say, well, when have we seen you hungry or in need or done that? And he goes, if you've done it to the least of them, you've done it to me. Again, no separate self. Jesus said, I'm God. Jesus said, the least of the is me. So again, no separate self. Again, people have a hard time with that one. And I'm not trying to preach religion here, but what I bring it back down to is that if there, number one, there's no separate self. And number two, the standard of all the love that he talked about, love of God, love of neighbor, was based on one standard, one foundation, love of self. And he said, love your neighbor as you love yourself. Now, quick story. My first job was as a youth minister up in the Ozarks of Arkansas. And I inherited a bus program that the previous minister had, where they went out and picked up kids, and brought them to church on Sunday. And they called them joy buses, Joy. And they preached this mantra, Joy. The J was Jesus first, O is others second, Y is yourself last. And I'm thinking, do you guys ever read the Bible? Jesus said, actually, flip that. You first. You
Yudge.
love others as you love you. You don't put you last. There's no love in that. So,
Mm-hmm.
where I break this down, we'll strip all the religious part out of it. You cannot love somebody more than you love yourself. It's impossible. It just can't be done. If you do not if you're at a 0.3, if you're at 3.7 on self-love, you can't love somebody at an 8 or 9 or 10. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a 3.7 on self-love, you can't let somebody love you at a 6.5. You just won't let it in. You'll
You
only
don't
let
have the
in
capacity. Yeah,
you can only
exactly.
let in 3.7. And that goes back to this guy on my call saying, my girlfriend's right there telling me how much she loves me and doing loving things for me. And I said, well, if your self-love's 3.7 and she's bringing a 6.5,
Yep.
you won't believe that it is possible. So what do we do about that? We start loving ourselves. And how do we demonstrate self-love? We make our needs a priority and surround ourselves with people who want to help us get our needs met.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is what you do with people you love. You help them get their needs met. Scott Peck defined love as basically the intention, the will, and the action to act in one's own or another's spiritual development,
Mm-hmm.
or best interest, or personal growth, however you want to reframe it.
Yeah.
So we have to be just as willing to work on our own self-love, self-development, spiritual growth, whatever we want to call it, as we're willing to give or want to receive from anybody else. And so the
Mm-hmm.
good news is that this is just is if you practice it, it starts, you see it. Start taking really good care of you. You know, uh, I try to get to sleep at a good time so I get a good night's sleep. I try to eat healthy. I try to exercise regularly. I meditate. I take my dogs for walks. I surround myself with people I care about. I take time off. I listen to music. I'll go up once or twice a day and do a little mini siesta with, a warm pack on my eyes. I do a lot of things to nurture myself, which all fills my bucket that now can overflow to other people. And I can be generous and loving and have more and more to give. People say to me, Robert, how do you have the drive, the energy, the spirit to do what you do at your age? And I go, I take good care of myself. I fill my bucket. And
Hmm.
I surround myself with people who like to help me fill my bucket, who love on me. Often I'll be sitting here doing, an interview like this or even working with the client.
Yeah.
And over here are a set of French doors. And Nala was sitting there. Nala, she's now back. There she is.
Is your dog? Yeah.
That's Nala. She's my pit bull. She's always in here with me. And my wife's in Guadalajara right now, so she's not here. The house cleaner's here, and the guy who's remodeling our bathrooms here. But
Uh-huh.
my wife will, there's some French glass doors there. And, so I can see somebody's outside the door of my office. But I'll be sitting here talking to somebody, and an arm will just kind of reach out and put a glass of coconut water on the corner of my desk,
Hmm.
right? While I'm talking. And she knows I'm on Zoom. She doesn't know who I'm talking to. She has no
Yeah.
clue. And
Right.
she doesn't want to know. But she just puts a glass of coconut water because that's her way. She's just a loving human being. She just shows her love in so many ways. And my life is now, hasn't always been, is surrounded with people, including Nala, who's not a people, but she's the most loving creature I know.
Uh-huh.
I'm surrounded with love. Now, if I don't love myself, I'm not going to invite that in. I'm not going to let it in. I'm going to keep hanging out with people who don't treat me well,
Yep.
who never call me back, who are mean to me when they're with me, who don't give. But I changed all that years ago. And by me making me a priority, I'm more loving. I have more to give, and I'm more receptive of the love that people want to give me, which actually is a gift we give other people when we let them love us. Often we make it hard for people to love us. I'll be eating and I realize, oh, I need a fork. And I'll get up to get a fork. And my wife says, what do you need? And I'll go, a fork. And she goes, I'll get it. I can get it. I mean, I'm all of, 20 steps from the kitchen. And I realized, because I didn't want to be like my dad, who was self-centered and, Mrs. Glover, get me a fork. I tried to be the opposite. My wife wants to get me the fork because that's her way of expressing love. She even told me, she had to tell me this a few times. She
Yeah.
said, Robert, you do everything for me. You pay the bills. I don't have to work. You give me a good life. Leave me some ways to show you I love you. Leave me some ways to contribute to the relationship. And I go, okay, I get it.
Being open to receiving. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll let you love me. I won't try to have the monopoly on love. So we joke about having an ongoing competition of who can outlove the other the most. And I always tell her, oh, you're gonna win. You're gonna win. You're a lot more loving than I am. And so we play with that. But you've got to be willing to love yourself, i.e., do good things for you, surround yourself with people and
First.
resources that you got to start there.
Hmm.
Then from that overflow, I can love others. And that also makes you very attractive to others as well.
Yeah.
And then other people, because they love the love that you give them, they want to love you back.
Yeah, the
I've
10 that you're looking for out there has to be the 10 that you're cultivating within yourself. If you want to be
beautiful.
date a 10, you've got to have the capacity to receive it a 10. I love that. I love that analogy.
And we got to change our numbering system that the 10 is based on physical appearance, that the 10
It's
is based
bullshit.
on the content of their heart.
Yep.
you know Kind of going back to the relationship thing. I tell people, I think it takes probably 3 years of conscious dating to really know somebody.
Hmm.
Every woman I've ever been with, at about the 3 year mark, I learned something that I didn't see coming. They either told me something they never told me, maybe they told me the opposite for 3 years,
Okay.
or they demonstrated a behavior or a point of view. I thought, whoa, what's that? It seems so inconsistent with
Yeah.
what I came to expect of them. And this has been true across the board, 100% of the time.
Uh-huh.
So I tell guys for dating, the purpose of dating is not to get someone to like you. It's not to get a girlfriend. It's not to get somebody in bed. This is true for women too. It is to find out what is that person's nature and how do they fit into your great life.
Right.
So that means you already have to have a great life. You
Yes.
already you have to be the decider. Not let them be the decider. Oh, you're really attractive. You're a 10. You're a high value woman, as they're called in certain parts of the internet.
Uh-huh.
Because they're young and hot. You're high value. Okay, no, high value is you have traits and behaviors that fit well and complement my great life. Not you're just hot enough to make, every guy, hit on you everywhere I
Mm-hmm.
go. So yeah, we got. I'm glad you said we got to change our numbering system.
Mm-hmm.
The 10 is based on how open is their heart and how full is their heart, self love and the ability to love others. Not do they have the
What does she
hourglass
look like?
figure or not no wrinkles or whatever else we're
Mm.
judging them by.
So you are known as the people pleaser, no more Mr. Nice Guy. You've written the playbook on this, and I think for those that are looking to level up their relationships, whether it's an intimate partner or perhaps even in the workspace, what is the, as you see it, some of the shadow elements of showing up nice, which I know in my own experience has been a strategy that's really actually helped me. Where does that become shadowy? Where's the version of a man that's actually doing everything that he can to help be the nice guy that he will get the raise or get the partner to love him? What is the downside of that as you've seen it in your work?
Yeah, I wrote a book about that. Um, if you'd met me 35, 40 years ago, I would have told you I'm a nice guy. It's kind of like, how do you know if somebody's a vegan?
They'll
They'll
tell you.
tell you.
Right.
Yeah. And how do you know if somebody does cold plunges?
Yeah.
They'll tell you. How do you know if somebody does intermittent fasting? They'll tell
Yeah.
you.
Uh-huh.
Um, uh, how do you know if somebody watches Huberman Lab? They'll tell you.
Uh-huh.
How do you know if somebody's a nice guy? They'll tell you. So I was that nice guy, and I thought, why doesn't everybody else try to be that nice guy?
Hmm.
And you know what? I think I always was a good person, and I was trying to not be me, even while I think I was a good person. Now, those messages don't be you came from different places, from religion, from my father, who I was trying to be different from, and my mother, who raised me to be different from her father. She told me that as a
Right.
young kid guy. I grew up during the angry feminism of the 60s and 70s. Every man's a rapist, and erection's a sign of aggression. I think, the future is feminine. That's tame compared to what I heard growing up.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And even that's really probably still a microaggression if you think about it.
Yes.
Basically, we don't need men. We don't, toxic masculinity, that's a macroaggression. But
Hmm.
coming from people who are highly sensitive to any form of aggression.
Yeah.
So I was raised to not be a lot of stuff or try
Uh-huh.
to be something. So what most nice guys are doing, maybe we just say all nice guys are doing, trying to do two things. They're trying to become what we think other people want us to be liked and loved and get our needs met
Yes.
and get them to have sex with us and hiding anything about ourselves that might get a negative reaction. And for
Okay.
most nice guys, that's needs, wants, opinions, and often sexuality. We're going around hiding a lot of that. And
Meaning we're
so,
hiding what it is that we actually want, like our desire for intimacy, or what do you mean?
well, and let's not confuse intimacy with sex. Though
Okay.
I get we do that, but they're very radically different things. Intimacy is knowing self and being known by another. That's intimacy. Sex is um, anything you wouldn't do with your sister.
Okay.
Those are very different categories. Can you have intimacy and sex? Yeah. Can you have sex and intimacy? Yeah. Can you have intimacy without sex? Yeah. Can you have sex without intimacy? Yeah. So I'm really big on trying to be clear about our words because like even guys will say I didn't have sex with her. I said, well, didn't you tell me like she went down on you or you did that to her? And he goes, oh yeah, but we didn't have sex. I said, no, wait a minute. You mean you didn't put your penis in her vagina? That's
Right.
that's a whole different thing. That's sex. Her going down on you is sex. You've seen her naked is sex. If you wouldn't do it with your sister, is sex. Okay,
Okay.
you have to get that clear with men. No, because
Okay.
well, with most people actually.
Okay.
Um, okay, we were going down a certain pathway. You're gonna have to get me back on that path because we got
That's
off
yeah,
it a
yeah.
couple of times.
No, that's cool. So I was just saying, the nice guy is actually using a strategy to have
Yeah.
sex. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. We diverted it to sex. We were talking about trying to be what we think people want us to be, the people pleasing, and
Yes.
hiding anything about us that might get a negative reaction. And I mentioned the sex part because we do live in a culture that, teaches us and this is all cultures, sex is bad. Sex is evil. I grew up being taught sex is dirty, evil, and sinful, so save it for the one you love. And what? Yeah, I mean, but that's a double bind. That and okay, now that I love you, sex is beautiful and good, but I've been hearing it's bad and evil all my life. Got to
Uh-huh.
be hidden, got to be secretive, got to be all that. But so because most nice guys attribute sex with being bad, being a bad man, they hide it, even their agenda from themselves. I tell guys how do the math on this. All right, a guy using what I'll call nice guy seduction, like I've already talked about, thinks if I hide my sexual agenda from the woman I'm talking to, maybe she'll want to take her clothes off. Where's the logic in that? I pretend I don't want to have sex with her. I'm just being nice. I'm just, listening and, I want to help her move and help her sister move and make her car payments for her. And if I hide that, because we think, well, women always say, well, guys only want one thing. No, I'm not that guy. But I tell men, you know what? Women aren't stupid. They know why we're talking to them. We're not talking to them because we get great value out of helping their sister move. We're going to volunteer to help her sister move because we hope they're going to take their clothes off because we did this nice thing for them. Covert contracts that I talk about in No More Mr. Nice Guy. So here's the deal. Going back to your question, we've had several detours here. Back
Yeah.
in No More Mr. Nice Guy, the first 2, 3 chapters talk about what's wrong with being a nice guy, with the things about being nice that make us not nice, anything but nice. When I got into therapy and recovery, is because my second wife just flat out said to me, everybody thinks you're such a nice guy, but you're not. You can hurt me badly. You can embarrass me in public. You can cut me down. You're passive aggressive. I don't trust you anymore. You have victim pukes. I think everything's okay. Then you blow up at me, and you go, you need help. And I'm going, well, you're the one who's unhappy all the time and angry all the time and moody all the time and never wants to have sex anymore. But yeah, okay, I'll go get help. Luckily, I landed in good places and found out things like, yeah, I had covert contracts. I was giving to give. I was manipulative. I was hiding my wants, my desires, and hoping people would just read my mind and meet them. And then I'd get resentful and passive aggressive when they didn't. I didn't even know
Mm-hmm.
about boundaries. I found out about boundaries that if somebody's treating me bad, that's not their fault. That's my fault. I got to do something about that.
Mm-hmm.
Self care. I didn't know that I had to take responsibility for my own needs. Being honest. I thought I was basic. And guys will say to me, Robert, I'm pretty honest. And I'll go, that's a contradiction of terms. You can't be pretty honest. You're honest or you're not.
Right.
Right? There's no wiggle. Because if you're not 100% honest, nobody ever knows, am I getting the 90% you that's honest or the 10% you that's not? And
Mm-hmm.
when's that showing up? I don't know, right?
Yeah.
So I started learning about all those things. So those are the things that are problematic about nice guys. We're inauthentic, we're less than honest, we're manipulative. Um, the book goes on to just list more and more things,
Yeah.
all going back to like what we were talking about a few minutes ago, because we've not taken full responsibilities for getting our needs met, being open and transparent about that, communicating it, surrounding ourselves with people who want to help us get our needs met. Nice guys tend to surround ourselves with people that we think if we meet their needs enough, they'll get their act together and be able to help us meet our needs.
Right.
Another bad math problem. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
Do not pick a person whose life is fucked up and think if you help them get their life unfucked, they'll be a good source to help meet needs in your life. It never happens. It
Rescuer.
just never gets there. Yeah, the whole rescue thing. So
Mm-hmm.
I tell guys, how you find them is how they are. If when you meet her, she's depressed, that's how she is. If when you meet her, she can't hold a job, that's how she is. When you meet her, if she's always fighting with her mother and all of her girlfriends, that's how she is. If you meet her, she doesn't pay her bills, that's how she is. It's not because she's going through a momentary difficult problem. It's how she is. And don't think you fixing that is somehow going to make her a good relationship candidate.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, your wheels are turning. Yeah, I did that. I did that. I
This
have
has
to.
been my work.
I've done all of this. I've done it all.
This has been my work, and I've actually, been channeled this tool, which is the inner kingdom, looking at archetypes and recognizing the various voices and versions of myself that grab the microphone from time to time and drive the strategies that show up in my life. And the people pleaser has been a strategy for me. I actually call him Charlie, who's based on
Okay.
the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory polite kid who literally gets the keys to the chocolate factory through good behavior and a strategy at a young age where my parents said to me, be polite because it's easy to take you out to our friends' houses. I was like, this is how I get love. And
Yeah.
so I moved with the strategy and I did all of the things that you're talking about, which is, I'll just keep on in this transactional place of showing up as a nice guy and get my needs met. But where I go into a place where I run that strategy every single time, Charlie's 7 years old. He's a people pleaser and I'm 45 now. And so I don't want to hold my current relationship through the lens of that 7-year-old. And for me, that people pleaser journey has really been a personal reparenting of that part of myself. Yes, I see you, Charlie, you're amazing. And I can still be a nice guy. I can still be polite and stuff, but I do need to be completely honest, which requires loving myself, knowing my own desires and communicating them to the people that I love. Without that, it's inauthentic and transactional.
Yeah. And that's the main thing that I work with men around is how do you become what I call an integrated man? Taking all these parts about you that you've never looked at, don't want to look at, don't let anybody see, and
Yeah.
all the parts that you're showing the world that are probably great, good things, and bring them all together, integrate them together, authentically let the world see all of you, warts and all. You know, I talk to Norman, Mr. Nice Guy. People aren't attracted to perfect people. They're not attracted to Teflon people. They're attracted to people's rough edges.
Mm-hmm.
What makes you interesting? You being smart all the time doesn't make you interesting. You being giving all the time doesn't make you interesting. You
Mm-hmm.
being in perfect shape doesn't make you interesting. It's your rough edges. It's where you're bumbling. It's where you have a sense of humor about yourself. It's where you haven't figured it out yet. That's
Mm-hmm.
interesting.
Brother, we've got so many things to talk about. I feel like this conversation would roll for a while, and I know you have more stuff lined up. And firstly, just want to honor you for the work that you're doing. This theme is
Thank you.
really much alive. It's something that I'm feeling a strong call towards supporting men in as well, because of the journey of the healer inherently has the wounded healer as part of it. This part of me
Oh, yeah.
that has this part that does try and rescue or be polite. And so, sharing what I've learned, your work has been an important part of that. Has been beautiful. We feel like we have very similar missions. When I see your website for your integrated nation, as wanting to be the one online men's platform, that's a very similar vision to what I have. There's much to be said about the integration and the maturing of all of these parts, which for me has been a few years ago, I would have been like, oh, fuck, he's building the exact same thing as me. I might as well stop, or we're somehow in competition. And
Yeah.
you've spoken to it so beautifully. Maybe you just want to just put a little
we're
bow on that.
we're all in the same team. As you and I were talking earlier that you know we're not competing for we're not in a race to the bottom to see who's going to survive by lowering their price or finding the lowest common. There's 3 billion men out there that need connection with other men,
Right.
and that's a really big pie, and we're all on the same team, and that is trying to help men level up, be the best versions of themselves, to love themselves, to love others, to love the planet we live on, to live with their purpose, to live with passion. We're all working together, and we have different strategies for doing it. We have a different models for doing it, different vocabulary, but we're more similar than different. And yeah, I'm sitting here. I'm somewhat distracted. My dog's growling, and you live in Latin America. There's a car going by with a loudspeaker on the top of it,
Selling gas.
broadcasting something. I don't know. I don't know what it was broadcasting. All of a sudden, I'm going, yeah. And, I've been like sitting for about 3 hours, holding my frame, and I go, okay, it's cracking. It's cracking. It's time to go get something to eat. But you know what? We're working together to support each other. And our ancestors survived as a tribe. And we're going to make the difference in this planet as a tribe, men working together, not your tribe over there and my tribe over here. And like I said, it's a big slice of the pie. Let's do it together. Let's learn from each other. Let's help each other. Because bottom line is, we're helping the men of the world, and we help the men of the world. We help the women of the world. We help the children of the world. And like I like how the Buddhists look at it. We're healing 7 generations back and 7 generations forward in the work that we do right now. So that's big work. Let's do it together.
Amen, brother. How do people connect with you to find out about your book? I know we didn't even get to speak about the big stick, which was on my list of questions, but
Oh, you
yeah,
spoke
where do
about
they
it just
connect
now.
with you?
Let's just point them to drglover.com. That's drglover.com or integrationnation.net. I know you have a men's program as well, but just plug that in there right there, Integration Nation.
Beautiful.
So again, we're all working together to, raise men up, give them community, give them masculine initiation. And I keep coming back to, helping them learn to love themselves, love others, and let others love them. Because maybe that's why we're here. Maybe that's why we're here.
Amen. Thank you, sir. I really appreciate your time. And
You're
yeah,
welcome.
thanks for taking this interview. And I can feel more co-creations in our future together based on the fact
Let's
that we're
keep
on the
talking.
same
Yeah.
mission. And I really appreciate the work you're doing, bro.
And I appreciate what you're doing. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you, sir. Good to have you on the show. See you
Thank
again
you.
soon.
We'll look forward to doing it again. Take care.
Much love. Ciao.